This is Pokemon Infinite Fusion, the fan game with over 221,000 different Pokemon combination. And we're at the height of spooky season, so please drag your bodies away from the walls and into the dead center of the room, because we're here today to see if we can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke using only Ghost-type Pokemon. Which means if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video, the sound of my voice, and this isn't your first time here, you should definitely hit that subscribe button. The only way I'm going to be able to continue to grow as a creator is with all of your help. So I'd really appreciate it if you could, help me out. Additionally, we're going to be playing this game on remix mode, which changes up the leaders' typings and teams, and overall makes the game a lot harder. It also does a complete overhaul of the encounters, making sure we're going to be able to have as many diverse fusions as humanly possible. And one final thing is I'm going to be starting off with the base form of every Ghost-type Pokemon in Infinite Fusion. I like to do my Mono-type runs this way because I get to use fusions that, honestly, I probably never would otherwise. But without further ado, let's head into it. Starting off in Professor Oak's lab, I've already decided who my fusion starter is going to be, so I started off with the Johto starters and we're going to grab a Cyndaquil. And for our first fusion pair, we are going to set up Cyndaquil with Ghastly and get ourselves the absolutely spooky Gasquil. But I'm actually going to change it over to this sprite because, honestly, it's adorable. And we're going to nickname our Gasquil Mr. Smoke. Now, I wanted to make myself look like a ghost host from the Haunted Mansion, but I can't change the suit color to green, so this is close enough. But after getting our balls from Professor Oak, let's see what friends we can make before we face off against Brock. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab a Bidoof. Over on 2, we're going to get a 2-for-1 with a Stuffba. Over on 22, a Phanpy. We're also going to stop by Viridian City Pokemon to grab our Pyukumuku. In Viridian Forest, we're going to grab all our Vesta. We're then going to stop over at the Secret Garden to get our Rockruff Egg. As well as another 2-for-1 with Pipney. And then finally on Route 3, a Cleffa. For our next fusion pair, we are going to be fusing up Golett with Stuffle. And we're going to get this adorable little Stuffalette. And our next pair is going to be Misdrevious with Pichu. And I love this little Mischu. And before taking on Brock, Mr. Smoke is going to evolve into a Guslava. And now it's time for us to take on Brock and his Rock Hard boys. Brock starts with Arduck and we're sending in Floppy. I'm going to start off by going for a Nasty Plot to double our special attack as it sets up a future sight. And then we can go for a Thundershock, getting it down to its sturdy as it goes for a Metal Claw. But one more takes it down. Next out comes Steve Jr. So we're going to swap Floppy out, sending in Mr. Smoke as he goes for a Confusion. Then after that, we're going to go for an Ember, doing just over 50% as he heals up with a Citrus Berry and then throws a rock at us, activating our own berry. And with one more Ember, we're going to bring it down wicked low as we get down to just 9 HP before we strike the final blow against Steve Jr. defeating Brock. While fighting our way across Route 3, Floppy is going to evolve into Mischu. And after making our way across Route 3, we run into Nurse Joy, who's tending to this wounded Geodude. And then enter Brock, up on the top of his Arduck, and he's here to save the day. But he doesn't quite understand how Pokemon typings works, and after using Water Gun on the Geodude to try to clean up some of the mud and debris off of his rock-hard body, the Geodude completely faints, and Nurse Joy needs to run back to the Pokemon Center to get her supplies. We're then gonna grab a fish from this guy. After making our way to the back of Mount Moon, we find Team Rocket doing God knows what with this rock scientist. And after putting the 3 rocket starters on these panels, the woman presses the button on the machine. And then after that, there's a flash of light on the 3 rocket starters and the machine explodes, blasting Team Rocket to parts unknown. And then in Mount Moon, we grab a Tyrogue. And we also pick up this cool rock. And then over on Route 4, we're going to grab a Yanma. And before facing off against Rando on Nugget Bridge, we are going to be fusing up our Magikarp with our Spiritomb. And look at Magnetomb. He's so surprised. Whoa! and we're gonna force feed this thing a bunch of candy right away, so Magnitude evolves into a Gerasum. We're then gonna evolve our Tyrogue, and it's gonna become a Hitmonlee. And then we're gonna immediately fuse it up with a Duskull, transforming into Dustly. We run into Rando over on Nugget Bridge, where he lets us know that there's been some sort of ghost outbreak happening all over the Kanto region. And he's taken this opportunity to start yet another business. But he's having trouble coming up with a really cool name and wants our help in doing so. Rando starts off with Codnix, and we send him Mr. Smoke. I'm gonna go for an Ember on the first turn, doing a massive amount of damage, getting him way down into the red, as the Codnix then goes for a Stun Spore. After that, Rando's gonna heal up with a Super Potion, and we can fire off another Ember, bringing it down once again. And after that, we're gonna get slapped with a Spark, doing a decent amount of damage to us, but one more Ember takes out the Codnix. Next out comes his Rockruff. So I'm gonna swap Mr. Smoke out, and I'm gonna send in Gerasum, who I forgot to give a nickname. And after getting the Intimidate off on this little tiny puppy dog, it's gonna go for a Bite, doing quite a bit of damage to us. And we're gonna fire back with a Bite of our own, getting it down to about a third, as it then goes for a Sand Attack. And with one more bite, we can then take down this doggo. Next out's gonna come his Solar V. And I'm gonna stay in, going for a Bite, getting him down way into the red, which is going to activate his berry, healing him up just a bit, and fortunately we get the flinch off, which means one more bite takes down the Solar V. His final Pokemon, Ninjord, comes in. And again, we're gonna go for a Bite from our mighty Gerasum, getting him down a little bit, as he then goes for a Leech Life, sucking up just a bit of help from us. And then after missing the following bite, we're gonna get Leech Lifed again, and now we're just about down to half. And after missing for a second time in a row, he's gonna go for a Feint Attack, which is gonna be super effective. I didn't consider how badly Dark is gonna ruin us, and anywho, we're gonna heal back up with our berry. So I'm gonna swap out Gerasum and then send in Floppy, even though this is probably a horrible idea, as he goes for a Leech Life, doing a bunch of damage to us. We're then gonna fire off a Thundershock, doing just about half, as a Feint Attack brings us down to just 10 HP, which is gonna activate our Citrus Berry, and with one more Thundershock, we take down the Ninjord, defeating Rando. And over on Route 24, we're gonna grab ourselves a Stunfisk. After making our way over to the Cerulean Cave, we run into Bill, who accidentally fuses himself up with a Rhydon. Which begs the question, if humans are able to fuse up with Pokemon, then how come I can't fuse up with a Pokemon and participate in the battle? But anyway, he wants our help in reversing the situation, so he steps into the machine. And with the press of a button, he then diffuses, but where did the Rhydon go? And to buy our silence, he gives us a ticket. And before facing off against Misty, Mr. Smoke is going to evolve into a Hunlava. And now it's time for us to take on Misty and her ice Pokemon. Misty starts off with Amso, and we're sending in Baby Monster. And I realize it's probably not super obvious, but I went for the names of a bunch of my daughter's toys for our ghost Pokemon. Because for some reason she loves ghosts. Anyways, after going for a Fake Out and then a Meditate, I'm hoping I can just take down both of Misty's Pokemon. So after we get hit with an Icy Wind, lowering our crappy speed, we go for a Brick Break, taking it out. Next up is going to come our Frostgrass. And after dodging an Icy Wind, we go for a close combat, grabbing ourselves the Oko, defeating Misty. Over on Route 5, we're going to grab ourselves a Meowth. Over on Route 6, we're going to grab ourselves a Bellsprout. Over on 11, we're going to grab a Noibat. And in Tiglett's Cave, we get an Axew. And over on the SSN, we run into Rando once again, who lets us know that he just caught 3 ghosts here on the SSN, and he's looking to bust some more. He also has a really cool name for his new business. It's called Spectre Capture, but it doesn't quite have the ring to it that I think it should. Rando starts off with Ninjord, and we send in Mr. Smoke. I'm going to go for an Ember right away, scoring a massive hit, getting him down to his Focus Sash as he goes for a Leech Life to heal up a bit. And once Rando uses a Super Potion, we can then take out the Ninjord. Next up comes Houndruff, and I'm hoping it's part Steel, and it is, but then it goes for a Rock Throw, getting us down super low, as it then goes for a Shadow Sneak, but one more takes it out. Next up comes Caresta. So we're going to swap out, sending in Nemu, getting the Intimidate off as the Caresta goes for an Aqua Jet. And then after that, we're going to go for a Chomp, getting him down pretty low, and then following up with a Shadow Sneak, taking out the Caresta, but now we're burnt. Next out comes Cottonuxio. And afraid of an electric move, we're going to swap out, sending in Floppy as he does go for a spark. After that, we're going to go for a Nasty Plot, and then he tries to go for a Razor Leaf, and then I can't paralyze him, you silly goose, but I can use Hex, taking him down in 1. Next out comes Solavi. We're going to outspeed, and I try to go for a Hex by mistake as we get hit down, activating our Berry. So I'm going to swap out, sending in Baby Monster, which was a terrible idea. But we can go for a Fake Out, doing a decent amount of damage, and then go for a neutral close combat afterwards, taking down the Solavi and defeating Rando. And before taking on Lieutenant Surge, Marty is going to go through its first evolution, becoming Biole, which unfortunately doesn't have a custom sprite, but I welcome the stat boost. And I'm honestly a little nervous here, but it's time for us to take on Lieutenant Surge and his Fighty Fight Boys. His first Fighty Fight Boy, Hullfist, comes in, and we send in Floppy. I'm going to try to go for a Nasty Plot and just Psybeam all these Pokemon down as I get hit with a Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. But I still can outspeed, going for a Psybeam, knocking him down pretty low before he heals up with his Berry, and I get Rock Tombed again, activating my own Berry. After that, Surge is going to use a Super Potion, and one more Psybeam takes it out. Next out comes his Ace Houndblade. And here's going to be the problem. This thing has Bite. But I'm going to send in Baby Monster, so the Bite is only neutral damage, but it still does over 50% as I heal up with my Berry. And I gotta go for broke here, so after getting bit one more time, I can go for a close combat, taking the Houndblade down in 1. Next up's going to come is Coughloom. And I'm going to swap Baby Monster out, and instead we're going to be sending in Marty as he goes for a Bullet Seed, which is going to do barely anything to us. He then goes for another Bullet Seed, which is going to activate my Citrus Berry, and I'm going to go for an Iron Defense. He's then going to go for another Bullet Seed again, and I go for a Shadow Punch, doing just over 50%. He then goes for a Clear Smog, but one more Shadow Punch safely takes the Coughloom down, and we defeat Surge. On Route 9, we're going to grab ourselves a Hawlucha. And over on Route 10, we're going to grab a Stantler. In Rock Tunnel, we're going to grab ourselves a Golbone. And even though I already fused up my Golett, this does mean we can grab a Cubone. Over on Route 8, we're going to grab a Houndour. And then on 7, we're going to get a Snubbull. Then after grabbing our Eevee, we make a stop over at Route 16 for a Growlithe. And to fill up the last slot in our party, we're going to fuse up Umbreon with Banette to get ourselves this little gremlin. Backtracking back over to Lavender Town, we head over to Pokemon Town because we hear ghosts like to hang out there, and that's when we're intercepted by Rando. Equipped with a vacuum cleaner, a flashlight, and a nuclear-powered ghost trap, he's ready to hunt down these goosely goblins. Rando starts out with Whimsicott, and he's sending Mr. Smoke. We're going to go for a Flamethrower, and we can grab ourselves the Oko on the Whimsicott, which is going to lead into Sharpesta. And I'm going to go for a Shadow Ball, getting it down really low as a Bite gets us down to just 12 HP. After that, Rando's going to heal up, but we can fire off another Shadow Ball, taking it out, which is going to lead into his Axelgon. And we're going to swap Mr. Smoke out, and we're going to send in Marty as the Axelgon goes for a Rock Tomb, doing barely anything, but it's going to lower our speed. But joke's on you, buddy, my speed already sucks. And after it goes for a Dragon Rage, we go for an Ice Punch, and even though it has a Yacha Berry, it's not enough to save it, which is going to lead into Niniard, who's going to go for a Metal Claw, doing a lot more than I honestly expected, and we're going to fire off a Stomping Tantrum, getting it down to about half as it gets a Speed Boost. We're then going to swap Marty out, and then send in Floppy as he goes for a Baton Pass, switching into Duo-V. And assuming a dark move, we're going to swap out, sending in Mickey. And we're then going to go for a knockoff, scoring a massive hit, KOing it in 1. Next out's going to come Niniard again, and we're going to go for another knockoff, but not before it can go for a U-turn to swap out, and then instead send in Honrock. And then when we go for a knockoff, we do a decent amount of damage to this thing. And on the following turn, we outspeed, going for one more knockoff, grabbing the KO. Which is going to lead back into Niniard, who's going to try to go for a U-turn, but there's nowhere left for you to hide. And going for another knockoff, we can grab the KO, and we defeat Rando. After the battle, Rando offers us a job, asking us if we want to join the Egand ghost collecting firm, and I tell him that maybe he should try to find a different type of employee, and that's when we hear screaming from across the room. And after rushing over, we see that Team Rocket is harassing this random old guy. But before we can save him, they say they have ways of making him talk and drag him upstairs. But unfortunately, neither of us are packing the special ghost goggles that we need in order to brave Pokemon Tower. Well, Rando hears we can buy them over at the mall in Celadon City, so I guess we're heading back over there. After realizing that they don't sell ghost goggles over at the mall, we head over to the gym, and that's when we see Rando beating up these two Team Rocket grunts. And it turns out that Team Rocket bought all of the ghost goggles for themselves because they don't want anybody to go save that random old guy. So it's probably more likely that he's somebody important and not a random old guy. But before he'll dare go into those treacherous sewers, Rando needs to get himself some waders because he's not going to ruin his brand new pants. So he heads back over to the mall to pick up those pants, and that's when Erica, the local gym leader, enters. And she asks if we'll help her dispatch Team Rocket. And how could I possibly say no to you, Erica? Let's go. And over in the sewers, we grab a Magnemite. And while fighting our way through the sewers, Mr. Smoke is going to ascend until his next form of Hunlosian. And then he's going to evolve one more time into his final form, into Genelosian. Next up, Marty is going to ascend as well, transforming into his final glorious form of Beelurk. Next up is going to be Baby Monster, who is also going to evolve into its next form of Dusli. And before we forget, we are going to give Floppy a Thunderstone so they can evolve into a Mistru. And I absolutely adore this sprite. And after working our way through the sewers and into their base, we decide to split up, which is definitely a great idea. But it turns out it was actually a terrible idea, because after we get through the base, we find that Erica's already been defeated by Giovanni, Team Rocket's leader. So it looks like it's going to be up to us to stop Daddy Geo. Giovanni's going to start off by sending in Haunch Sing, and we send in Floppy. On the first turn, I'm going to go for a Nasty Plot to double my special attack, as he goes for a Swagger, doubling my real attack. But joke's on you, buddy. Thunderbolt! And we take down the Haunch Sing. After that, his Kekgon comes in next. And after we smack ourselves in the face, he's going to go for a Dragon Tail, knocking us down to just 15 HP before we get slapped out and Marty gets sent in. He is then going to go for a Rock Slide on Marty, which unfortunately flinches us. And then I forget that he has an air balloon, so when I fail to do Stomping Tantrum, he's going to Dragon Tail us out too, sending in Mickey. And after we go for a Will-O-Wisp, cutting his attack, we're going to get Dragon Tailed out again, sending in Nemu. Somehow we're going to outspeed and then go for an Ice Fang, doing quite a bit of damage before we get, you guessed it, Dragon Tailed on out of there. But this is going to send Floppy back in. Giovanni is then going to use a Max Potion, and then we can go for a Psybeam, doing barely anything. But I'm honestly a little scared for Floppy, so we're going to swap out and instead send in Baby Monster, as this thing goes for another Rock Slide, which we can resist. We're then going to go for a Fake Out to get some more chip damage in, before it decides to go for a Sucker Punch, doing a little bit of damage to us, but that does make our Brick Break super effective, and we take it out. Next out comes his Smeargar, who's going to go for a Quiver Dance on the first turn, and we are going to go for a Brick Break, scoring a massive hit, getting him down pretty low before his Berry. And then after that, he puts us to sleep. And then he goes for a second Quiver Dance. But we wake up and going for a Brick Break, KOing it right away, which is going to lead into his final Pokemon, Disdain, who only has fighting moves and normal moves, so he can't hit us. So we're going to swap out, sending in Mickey, as he just goes for a Meditate because there's literally nothing else he can do. Then after that, I'm going to go for a Will-O-Wisp just for funsies as he goes for another Meditate. Then going for a knockoff, we score a massive hit, getting rid of his Focus Sash, and now that he's down super low, one more knockoff takes it down, and we defeat Giovanni. And with Giovanni defeated, he gives us our own pair of Ghost Goggles, and Erica thanks us and says that she'll be waiting for us over at the gym. But since I beat somebody you couldn't beat, shouldn't I just, get the badge? And now it's time for us to take on Erica and her bug Pokemon. But this bug trainer is basically not weak to fire, at all. We're going to send in Oradalo first, and then we send in Nemo as well. going for an Aqua Tail, so she does some chip damage to us, and we go for an Aqua Tail, scoring a good hit on her. After that, she's going to swap out, sending in her Scoleon, who can tank it no problem. And I really meant to put in Mickey so I could use knockoff on this thing, but after Erica uses her first Hyper Potion, another Crunch is going to get the defense drop, which is good. And another Muddy Water does a little bit of chip damage to us, activating our berry, but our accuracy is super low now. But we managed to break through with a crit, getting the KO. Then Nemo's going to get knocked down super low with a Giga Drain, but we get lucky on a hit with an Aqua Tail, grabbing the KO. And we're going to swap Nemu out and instead send in Marty as this thing goes for a Rock Slide. And then going for a Stomping Tantrum is now down into the red as an X-Scissor activates our berry. And then going for a Brutal Swing, we can get this thing down even lower as it goes for an X-Scissor. And then with one more Brutal Swing, we take out the Oradolo and we defeat Erica. After fighting our way to the top of Pokemon Tower, it turns out the Team Rocket's already left. And the person that they had kidnapped and interrogated was Mr. Fuji, the creator of the Master Ball. And this is when he lets us know Team Rocket's ultimate evil plan. They want to get a bunch of Master Balls, catch a bunch of strong Pokemon, and then start triple fusion. So if we want to stop Team Rocket, we should head over to Silph Co next. But I got a badge to earn first. And over in the Safari Zone, we're going to grab ourselves a Vigoroth. And knowing we're going to need something to combat Koga's Dark Team, we're going to fuse Clefable up with Cofagrigus to get ourselves a Clefagrigus. And now it's time for us to take on Koga in his Dark Pokemon. Mimirak comes in first and we send in Silly, who's going to U-turn out right away, swapping into Aegiturn, and I'm going to go ahead and get the burn off on this thing. And after it hits me with an Iron Head, we're going to set up a couple of minimizes here so I can try to live. And after it goes for a King Shield on the following turn, that's going to let me get to a +4 for free. And now that we're at +6, I can start healing up with Moonlight. And now that he's super low, we can go for a Draining Kiss, and he's wicked low now as Koga goes to use his first Hyper Potion. And now this thing absolutely has no chance of hitting me as Koga heals him up yet again. And we're just going to ride this out for a couple of more turns until ultimately it can go down to our Smooches. Next up comes Weiryon. And once again, I'm going to go for the Will-O-Wisp, and unfortunately, I forgot about Synchronize. So while it does connect with a Dark Pulse, we can do quite a bit of damage with another Smoochie Kiss, and I need to get some PP ups on this thing, because I am already out of moves here, but it's going to be fine, so we're just going to go for another Moonlight, and for the next couple of turns, we're going to let the burn do the thing. And unfortunately, it's then going to use a Clear Smog on me, so I'm going to have to switch out. And we do, sending in Nemo instead, getting the Intimidate off, as a Dark Pulse does about half to us. But this thing is now down super low. And it's going to outspeed us with another Dark Pulse, which is unfortunate, and a Crunch takes it down. This is going to lead into Haunchfire. And assuming a Thunder, we're going to swap out, sending in Baby Monster as it tries to go for a Sucker Punch. And then after that, we're going to go for a Fake Out to get the flinch off. And then as it goes for a Drill Peck, doing a massive amount of damage to us, I'm going to go for a Meditate. And I completely forgot about Drill Peck, so we're going to swap out, sending in Mickey as it goes for another Drill Peck. Then after it misses a Thunder, we can go for a Will-O-Wisp on this guy as well. Then after getting paralyzed with a Thunder Wave, unfortunately we're unable to act, and it nails us with a Thunder, activating our berry, getting us down pretty low, and we are paralyzed unfortunately. When it connects with another Thunder, it scores a crit, KOing Mickey. So here comes Silly again. And as it misses the Thunder, I can go for just one more Smoochie Kiss, KOing it. Which is going to lead into Mimirak again. And it's going to try to U-turn, but there's nowhere else for it to run, as we then go for a Will-O-Wisp here. And at this point, all I can do is keep on going for U-turns, because I don't think it can hit me with anything else. So we're just going to keep on going to minimizes, so we can ensure that we don't get taken out by this thing, as it then sets up a Destiny Bond. But luckily, my burn technically doesn't count as me taking it down, so all I need to do at this point is just keep on spamming Moonlight, as it keeps on desperately trying to Destiny Bond me. And I'm out of PP. So let's switch things up and go for Will-O-Wisp instead, even though we know it can't do anything. And after a bunch of turns, it goes down, and we defeat Koga, but we did lose our first Pokemon of the run. We run into Rando over in Silph Co because apparently he's looking to raid their storage facility. He plans on stealing a bunch of Rotom so we can stuff him inside of various objects to make his Ghostbusting business a reality. And Ghostbusters might actually be a really great name for his business. Rando's going to start off with Dumbrock, and we're going to send in Nemu. Now that we have the Intimidate off on this thing, we should be able to take a couple of hits no problem, as I'm going to go for a couple of Dragon Dances to hopefully get the advantage on these guys, because Rando's team is honestly kind of a problem for my Ghosts. And after our berry gets activated, after getting knocked down a little bit below half, we are now at +4 as an Iron Head does barely anything. And then going for an Aqua Tail, we can get the KO on the Durock, which is going to lead into Whimsray. And even though it gets the Intimidate off on us, unfortunately, Ice Fang is not quite enough to get the KO, as he swaps out, sending in Renuvion, and we get an Ice Fang followed by a Crunch on it for the KO. Next now it's going to come Whimsray, again getting another Intimidate off on us, and even though this thing keeps on knocking down our attack, we are more than fast enough to go first, knocking it way down into the red. And on the following turn we can go for a Crunch, finishing it off. Next out comes Sharperona. And I'm a little scared of this thing, so we're going to swap out, sending in Floppy as it goes for a Fiery Dance, increasing its special attack and then its speed. And it's then going to go for a Dark Pulse, and it annihilates Floppy! And that's super frustrating because we were so close to getting its evolution, as the Sharperona goes for another Dark Pulse on Marty, and we can go for a Stomping Tantrum, but unfortunately it has a Shuka Berry, so it doesn't go down. So we're going to swap out, sending in Silly instead as it goes for another Fiery Dance. And then after getting us down a little bit below half and activating our berry, we can go for a Smoochy Kiss, doing barely anything. And it is now a true speed demon as its Fiery Dance gets another increase on its special attack. And I have to hope that this last one is enough, and I don't even get to activate it as Silly goes down as well. So in comes Baby Monster. And going for a Fake Out, we can finally take the Sharperona down, which is going to lead into Fraxelgon. It goes for a Zen Headbutt, getting us down to just about half as I go for a Meditate. And after we get knocked down way into the red, activating our berry, we can go for a Close Combat, grabbing the KO, which is then going to lead into Niniard. So after swapping out Baby Monster, we're going to go ahead and send in Mr. Smoke, and the Niniard is going to go for a Night Slash, doing some decent damage to us and increasing its own speed. After that, it's going to go for an Iron Head for reasons unknown, which is going to activate our Citrus Berry, healing us back up quite a bit, as we can go for 8x4 super effective Flamethrower, getting it down to its Focus Sash. And after another speed boost, it's going to outspeed us, going for an Iron Head, getting us back down to half, as one more Flamethrower on the Niniard takes it out. And we just lost 2 more of our friends. We're going to backtrack a little bit so we can fill our team back up, and we're going to do that with Slacking and Delamise to get ourselves Delm King. And I absolutely love this sprite. We are then going to go ahead and fuse up Rotom with Magnezone and get ourselves Magnetom. And after the two of us join forces and bust into the president's office, we see Giovanni yelling at the Silph president because he doesn't think he's making enough Master Balls. He needs at least 3 because he wants to catch 3 birds. And that's when Giovanni realizes that Rando and I are here together to stop him, and the double battle begins. Giovanni starts off with Haunting and Agamagius, and we send in Dubrock and Monkey Jocks. The Agamagius is going to go into sword mode, firing off a flash cannon on the Dubrock, scoring a pretty massive hit, as the Dubrock goes for a Rock Slide on that side of the field, doing a bit of damage to both of Giovanni's Pokemon, and then I'm going to go for a Growth to increase my attack 1 stage. On the following turn, the Agamagius is going to go for another flash cannon, absolutely annihilating Dubrock. And then after that, Haunting's going to go for a Sludge Bomb on us, doing a little bit of damage, and we are going to go for an Anchor Shot, scoring a massive hit on this thing. After that, Randall's going to send in his Sharperona. And I know that Giovanni's going to heal up with a Max Potion, and I'm going to take this opportunity to go for Agamagius instead, as it goes for a Shadow Ball on the Sharperona, getting it down pretty low, and then a Fiery Dance KOs the Agamagius before I even get a chance to go for it. So an Anchor Shot's going to do a good amount of damage to Haunting, getting him down to about a quarter. After that, Kekon comes in. And the Sharperona goes for another Fiery Dance on Haunting and absolutely annihilates it. This is when the Kekon is gonna go for a Rock Slide on our side of the field, which is going to KO Sharp Bruno, and now we're down to about half, but now Anchor Shot's gonna be super effective, so we score a massive hit on it, grabbing ourselves the KO, which is gonna lead him into sending Donzor, and then Renuvion comes in on our side, and then Cardapex comes in as well. Renewion's gonna go for a Hyper Voice on that side of the field, doing barely anything to Giovanni's Pokemon. And then for whatever reason, it's gonna go for a Scary Face, which gets bounced back at itself, and we can fire off an Anchor Shot on the Cradpex before it decides to go for a Stockpile. Renewion's gonna go for a Psychic on the Cradpex, and then we can follow up going for another Anchor Shot, grabbing the KO. And after that, Donzor's gonna go for an Iron Head, doing quite a bit of damage to Monkey Jocks. And we're gonna swap Mr. Monkey Jocks out, and we're gonna send in Nemu instead, so we can grab the Intimidate off on this thing. Then after that, Renewion's gonna go for another Hyper Voice, doing just a bit of damage again, and then this thing is gonna go for an Earthquake, which does a little bit of damage to our side of the field. Renewion's then gonna go for Shadow Ball on Donzor, bringing him way down into the red before we can go for an Aqua Tail, grab the KO, and absolutely devastate Giovanni. And we're saving everybody in Silph Co, we're gonna grab a Chikorita. And before facing off against Sabrina, Baby Monster is going to ascend into its final magical form of Duskly. And now it's time for us to take on Sabrina and her fairy Pokemon. Sabrina's going to start off with Togetails, and we're going to send in Nemu. My plan here is to go for a couple of Dragon Dances, and then hopefully I can just Oko all over Pokemon, as this thing sets up a Rain Dance for some reason, and then goes for an Air Slash. And after we get to +3 with our speed, we're going to get hit with another Air Slash, and now we're down to about 75%. And when going for an Aqua Tail, we can grab the KO, which is going to lead into Marikyu. And once again, an Aqua Tail is going to go ahead and get rid of its disguise as it goes for an Earthquake, knocking us down to just 6 HP. And another Aqua Tail grabs the KO, which is going to lead into Rosefour. And we're going to go for an Ice Fang, grabbing the KO on it, but unfortunately now we're poisoned. And this is going to lead into Clefclang, her final Pokemon. And I'm going to swap Nemu out and then send in Mr. Smoke as he goes for a Play Rough, but she doesn't do really anything to us. And when we can go for a Flamethrower, we pick up the KO, and we do a great job destroying Sabrina's hopes and dreams. Over on Route 21, we're going to grab this Oricorio. In Pokemon Mansion, we're going to grab ourselves a Tyrant. And now it's time for us to take on Blaine and his Psychic Pokemon. Blaine is going to start off by sending in Mr. Clang, and we are going to be sending in Mr. Smoke. And in this Battle of the Misters, we're faster and we can pick up the Yoko with a Flamethrower, which is going to lead into Magmarish's next Pokemon. And we're going to outspeed and go for a Dark Pulse right away, doing about 70%, which is going to activate his Berry to heal him up quite a bit. And then from here, he's going to go for a Belly Drum, bringing himself down to like literally 1. And he doesn't even bother healing up. And then we go for a Shadow Ball, grabbing the KO. Next out's going to come Weblord. And I'm honestly a little scared of this thing, so I'm going to go for a Confuse Ray first, since it can't hit me. So after we do a little bit of damage to it, I'm then going to fire off a Shadow Ball, and I'm hoping that it's enough to grab the KO, and it's not. And he's going to try to go for a counter, thank goodness. But with one more Shadow Ball, we can then take down the Weblord. His final Pokemon, Magros, comes in, and you've got that right. And we're going to go for a Shadow Ball on this big beefy boy, getting him down way into the red, dropping his special defense as he goes for his Zen Headbutt, getting us down just below half, which is going to activate our Citrus Berry. And with one more Flamethrower, we can take it down, and with that, Mr. Smoke has smoked Blaine. And while riding over to Mount Ember, we're going to grab a Sharpedo. And once we make our way over to Mount Ember, we find Giovanni and the rest of Team Rocket. And it turns out that not only has he managed to capture all 3 Cantonian legendary birds, he has fused them together into one super bird. He calls this super bird Zap Molkuno. And I gotta give it to you, Gio, that's a really cool name. But now it's going to be up to us to try to stop Team Rocket and defeat them once and for all, for the sake of the Kanto region. And why an adult isn't taking care of this is beyond me, but in comes Zap Molkuno up against Ryu. And I have to hope that an Electric Gem boosted discharge is enough to do something, and it isn't. I don't even take one of them down before Ryu gets KO'd. Which means we're sending in Mr. Smoke. And we're going to go for a Flamethrower on Articuno, and we're going to grab ourselves the KO as Zapdos goes for a Thunderbolt, and fortunately Moltres is paralyzed. We're then going to go for a Stab Shadow Ball on Moltres, where we can grab ourselves the KO, and Zapdos goes for another Thunderbolt, doing quite a bit of damage to us, activating our Berry. And it turns out I'm pretty lacking in the special defense department, so we're going to swap out, sending in Marty, as a Thunderbolt does just about half to us. Then from here, we can outspeed with an Ice Punch, and we KO it, fortunately. And I can't believe we only lost one Pokemon, but we defeat Giovanni. And with Giovanni defeated, the three birds diffuse, and they disappear to parts unknown. Except I know exactly where they are, because I've played this game before. I completely forgot to do this earlier, but we're going to head back to our house and grab this egg from our sister. And then over on the Viridian River, we're going to grab a Chimchar. And to fill up the last slot on our team, we're going to fuse up Polysand with Blissey to get Blissand. And this Sand Happiness Pokemon is a Pokemon Center. And now it's time for us to take on Giovanni and his normal dudes. Giovanni's going to start off by sending in Disdain, and we're going to start off with Baby Monster, who I'm going to send in on purpose because once it uses Imposter, it can't hit any of my Pokemon with any of Baby Monster's moves. So we're going to swap the monster out and then send in Blissand instead as it goes for a Meditate, because honestly that's all it can do. After it goes for another Meditate, I'm going to go for a Toxic because I might as well. And then from here he's going to swap out, sending in BI as I go for a Minimize. Who tries to go for a Sleep Talk for some reason, and then I'm going to go for a Toxic on it as well as it goes for a Rest. Okie dokie, and then we're going to go for another Minimize to get to +4. And it goes for a Sleep Talk, trying to go for a Shadow Claw, which doesn't hit me. Now from here we can go for an Earth Power, doing a lot less than I honestly thought we would here, and it's going to wake up again, and then we can go for another Earth Power. And I don't think it can hit me, so he's going to swap out, sending Disdain back in, who's still poisoned even though it copies me, and we can go for an Earth Power. And while this is kind of unfortunate, I don't think it'll be able to hit me down at a +6. Just kidding, it got the Toxic off, and that's really frustrating. And we miss our Giga Drain because it copied my stats as well as it swaps back into BI, and I can go for a Giga Drain, healing back up to full. And assuming it's going to go for another Rest, we're going to swap out into Monkey Jocks as it does indeed go for that Rest. And then we're going to go for an Anchor Shot, doing just over 50% as it tries to go for a Facade, but it can't hit me with any of its moves, and one more Anchor Shot takes it out. Snorking comes in next. Who's going to go for an Earth Power on us, doing a decent amount of damage, but we can take it down way into the red with a Power Whip. He's then going to swap out and then send Disdain back in, who's poisoned, and we can go for another Power Whip, taking it down. Next out comes Snorking, once again, who's going to go for another Earth Power, getting us down pretty low, but then we can take it out. And this is when Tyranniking comes in. And we're going to swap out Monkey Jocks and send in Blissand as he tries to go for a Rock Slide. And now, Insensitive is true, and we can go for a Giga Drain, doing about a third as we heal ourselves back up a little bit. And he's going to swap out, sending in Mapam as I go for another Giga Drain. It's then going to go for a Dual Chop, doing a bit of damage, activating our Berry, but it's going to hurt itself with its Life Orb before we decide to go for a Toxic. But our Toxic is ticking up quite a bit, so we're going to swap out into Nemu to get the Intimidate off as he goes for another Dual Chop. He is then going to go for a Bulk Up on the following turn, and I'm going to go for a single Dragon Dance to hopefully be faster than his two remaining Pokemon, and I'm still not faster than Mapam, but after our Berry gets activated, an Aqua Tail will grab the KO. And while I'm not sure if I'm faster than Tyranniking, I know I can take a hit from it, except for the fact that I miss. And when I have my opening, I miss again as a Rock Slide brings me down to 4. But we finally connect, defeating Giovanni. And it's time to head over to the Elite Four. Wanting to change up our party just a little bit before facing off against the Elite Four, we are going to fuse Haxorus with Mimikyu, and look at this Mimiksaurus. And now that we're here at the Indigo Plateau, let's take a look at our team before we face off against the Elite Four. First up, we have Baby Monster the Duskly with Brick Break, Close Combat, Fake Out, and Meditate. Doc TV the Blissand with Earth Power, Giga Drain, Minimize, and Toxic. Mr. Smoke the Ganalosian with Flamethrower, Shadow Ball, Confuse Ray, and Dark Pulse. Nemu the Garatoon with Aqua Tail, Ice Fang, Crunch, and Dragon Dance. Monkey Jocks the Delm King with Anchor Shot, Power Whip, Thunder Punch, and Play Rough. And finally, Cuddle Bear the Mimixorus with Dragon Claw, Play Rough, Shadow Claw, and Dragon Dance. And our first Elite Four challenger is going to be Lorelei and her water Pokemon. Lorelei starts off by setting in a Rotoad, and we set in Monkey Jocks. And after it causes the rain to fall, it's going to go for a Weather Ball, doing a good amount of damage, and we go for a Power Whip for the KO. Next up comes Garrick. And after it's going to get the Intimidate off on us, I'm going to swap out quick, setting in Mr. Smoke by accident as it goes for a Hurricane, thankfully. Then trying to get it to go for an Aqua Tail, and we're going to swap out, setting in Nemu, getting an Intimidate of our own as it does go for an Aqua Tail. Then from here, it's going to go for a Play Rough, doing a little bit to us as we start stacking up the Dragon Dances. And I'm going to try to go for at least 2 or 3 of these, so hopefully I can sweep through the rest of the team as we go for our third one, and it continues missing Aqua Tails, and then it hits us with an Ice Fang. Now going for a Crunch, I guess it doesn't actually have Disguise, and then it's going to get us down to about half. And after that, we're going to go for a Stab Aqua Tail, even though it's not very effective, finishing it off. Our next Pokemon out is going to be Kingstar. And we're going to go for a neutral damage Aqua Tail, grabbing the KO on it as well. Which is going to lead into Scartops as her next Pokemon. And going for another Aqua Tail, we can get it down way into the red as it goes for an Iron Head, which is going to activate our Citrus Berry, healing us up just a bit. And after that, Lorelei is going to use her first full restore, and we can go for an Aqua Tail, getting it back down into the red, which prompts her to heal up again. And then after we go for another Aqua Tail and a Bite, we can take it out, which is going to lead into Pukatile. And I hate this thing, and I am so thankful that it does not actually have innards out because it's supposed to, as she sends in her final Pokemon, Milatina, who's going to go ahead and set up a Magikarp on the first turn, and we can go for an Ice Fang, doing about a third. After that, we're going to go for a Crunch, getting it down way into the red as she sets up a Toxic. But her fate is already sealed, and one more Crunch takes her down, and we defeat Lorelei. And now it's time to take on Bruno and his Rock Hard Boys. Bruno starts off with Tyrandra, and we're going to send in Monkey Jocks. It's going to go ahead and set up a Stealth Rock on the first turn, and when we go for an Anchor Shot, we absolutely annihilate this thing, which is going to lead into Kingron. And normally I have to worry about this thing going for a Metal Burst, but I'm using a physical attacker as we do a massive amount of damage, and then it's going to go for a Stone Edge, doing a decent amount of damage to us. But it's not low enough for Bruno to heal up, so one more Anchor Shot grabs the KO. Next down comes Maripirier. And we can outspeed this thing and go for an Anchor Shot on it as well, grabbing ourselves the KO. Which is going to lead into his next Pokemon, Armblade. And instead of going for a Nautilus Hook, we're going to go for a Power Whip, grabbing ourselves the Koko, which is going to lead into Eridon next. Who's going to go for an Eruption right away, getting us down just below half, which is going to activate our Berry, and we're going to go for another Power Whip, which is Quad Super effective, and this thing is Quad Super dead. And then Kraidluff comes in as his final Pokemon, who's going to outspeed us, going for a Weather Ball, which is going to do barely anything. And we can go ahead going for another Anchor Shot, picking up the KO, and Mr. Monkey Jocks wins the day. And now it's time for us to take on Agatha and her Poison Pokemon. Agatha's going to start off by setting in a Toxstrom, and we are going to be setting in Duck TV. The Toxstrom's going to go for a Poison Jab on the first turn, doing barely anything, and we're going to fire back with an Earth Power, doing just over 50%, and we're going to drop this thing's special defense. And on the following turn, Agatha's going to use a full restore, which was a really good move because I know that I'm not going to KO on the following turn. And when she heals up again, I'm going to go for a Minimize this time. And then after laying down some Toxic Spikes, we're going to get up to +4 and then up to +6. Before we start going for Earth Powers, once again scoring a big hit this time, and then a second one grabbing the KO, but not before it poisons me with a Poison Jab. Next now it's going to come Heizing, who ruined all my hopes and dreams by having Levitate. But we're going to go for a Giga Drain, doing barely anything, so I'm going to have to swap out. I'm going to swap Duck TV out, and then this time send in Mr. Smoke, because the only thing I really have to worry about on this thing is Earth Power, and I'm levitating, and I shouldn't have said that because now I'm poisoned. But I'm going to go for a stab flamethrower doing just over 50% as it goes for a dark pulse, which I did not realize it had. And now we are way down into the red, but now I know that I'm faster, I can KO it before swapping out. And left with only 17 HP, out comes Alligar. And I'm going to swap out sending in Monkey Jugs, even though I know it means I'm going to get Toxicked. And he's going to go for a Dazzling Gleam, activating my berry, and we're going to go for an Anchor Shot, grabbing the KO. Next out's going to come Crow Pass. And I'm going to swap out Monkey Jugs and instead send in Baby Monster, poisoning another one of my Pokemon as this thing goes for a nasty plot. And I'm going to go for a Fake Out as it goes for a second nasty plot. And I know it's only going to be neutral damage, but I have to try something as it goes for a Flash Cannon, scoring a massive hit on me, and I can go for a close combat, getting it down low, but not low enough, as the poison is really doing a number on me, and an Earth Power KOs Baby Monster. But now I know I have a safe swap in with Mr. Smoke, where I can go for a Flamethrower and pick up the KO on this thing. But stupid me forgot about the poison, and Mr. Smoke goes down. So we're going to go ahead and send in Nemu as Clefairy comes in. The Clefairy is going to go for a Minimize, which is incredibly unfortunate as I go for my first Dragon Dance. And after I miss in Aqua Tail, it's going to go for a Trope Kick, doing quite a bit of damage to me as I miss again as it goes for a Sludge Bomb, which is going to get me down low enough with the poison for my... We finally connect, getting it down way into the red as it goes for a Moonblast, lowering my special attack, and then the poison is going to get Nemu down to 24. So that means we're going to swap Nemu out and then send Doc TV back in as it goes for another Trope Kick, doing a little tiny bit of damage to us. And another Trope Kick's going to do a little bit of damage to us as it activates our berry, lowering our attack, and we manage to connect with an Earth Power, KOing the Clefairy. And his final Pokemon, Mu-Oh, comes in, and I am in a seriously bad position as this thing goes for a Venoshock. I can go for a Minimize, and I just realized I don't have a healing ability. So we are going to swap Doc TV out and then send in Cuddle Bear as I get poisoned, and it goes for a Sacred Fire, breaking our disguise. And then going for a single Dragon Dance, I have to hope I'm jacked up enough as it goes for a Venoshock, and the poison is really starting to hurt us. So going for a Dragon Claw, we do just over 50% as a Sacred Fire goes ahead and activates our berry. And this thing is healed up back over 50%, and the poison has us below 50%, and it doesn't go down as it goes for a Recover on the following turn. So going for another Dragon Claw, we bring it way down to the red as a Sacred Fire brings us to just 37 HP, and we are down to 13 before we finally take it down, and we barely scoot by Agatha. And now it's time for us to take on Lance and his Fly Guys. Dark Knight comes in first, and we send in Nemu. So at this point, I kind of just need to stack up as many Dragon Dances as possible and hope that Nemu can just sweep, because I am in a really rough spot considering how difficult Rando is on Remix mode. And after getting myself up to +6 and taking a bunch of Iron Heads, Lance uses his first full restore. Then from here I can go for an Ice Fang, and because of its multi-scale it doesn't go down, but after he uses his second full restore, 2 more take it down, which is going to lead into Ninria. And going for an Aqua Tail, we can take it down to its Focus Sash as it starts up a Solar Beam, but because of the sun, it goes off right away, knocking me down to about half. But with one more Aqua Tail, it goes down, which leads into Septidactyl. And going for a ×4 super effective Ice Fang, we can KO it, which leads into Meta Menace. And going for an Ice Fang, we get it down pretty low, but it has a Rocky Helmet, which I completely forgot about, and now we are down to just 16 HP as Toga Flame comes in. And I can't risk it, so I have to swap Nemu out and send in Monkey Jocks as he goes for a Flamethrower. But knowing that this thing is Fairy, it's going to go for a Yawn on the following turn, and we can KO it with an Anchor Shot, which is going to lead into Stever, his final Pokemon, who's going to go for an Outrage, knocking me down below half, and we can go for a Play Rough and do about half before we fall asleep. So we're going to swap out into Doc TV as he hits us with another stack of Outrage, and then the confusion happens. From here, he's going to go for another Outrage, and I unfortunately try to Toxic this thing twice, even though it's Steel type, you silly goose. And I am in a really crummy position as my berry gets activated, and I'm doing barely any damage to this thing. So after it smacks itself in the face, I need to start stacking up Minimizes, because that's literally my only hope at this point. And after we get to +3, I need to just start siphoning this thing out as little as humanly possible until it big brains me and goes for a psych up, copying all of my stat changes. So now at this point, neither of us are really going to be able to hit one another, and it seems like I'm the only one having the tough time here. And even though we both have maxed out evasion, I can't hit this thing for the life of me, and he keeps on getting me, which is incredibly frustrating. Why does he keep hitting me? And finally, I realize that this thing isn't flying type, and I go for an earth power where we can connect, grab the KO, and defeat Lance. As we enter the Champion's Chamber, we find Rando, who has turned this room into some sort of nuclear reactor, inlining all of the walls, ghost traps, each filled to the brim, bursting with 999 less than happy haunts. And that's when he turns to us, and then he lets us know that there's always room for 1,000. Then the battle begins. Rando starts off with Ninsharp, and we're gonna send in Cuddle Bear. My plan here is to just stack up some Dragon Dances and then hopefully just KO all of his Pokemon as he goes for an Iron Head on the first turn. And then once we get our second Dragon Dance going, he can go ahead and score a massive hit with an Iron Head on us. So we go for a +2 Dragon Claw, doing a lot less than I would have hoped, and we barely survive this as now I know he's gonna be faster than me. So we're going to send in Doc next, and I guess I'll go for a Minimize here since I know that Iron Heads won't really do a lot to her. And after getting Flinch, she's going to swap out into Haxbenneth, who is now going to be an absolute monster. And luckily it misses an Earthquake, but we also miss our Toxic, but we do connect on the following turn just for it to use its Lumberry. So we're going to go for it once again. And then it's going to start going for Dragon Dances on top of the speed boost that it already has. So we need to do something here as it connects with its Outrage, doing a bunch of damage to us. And after that, we are going to go for a Giga Drain, doing barely anything to this thing. But I kind of just have to let the Poison do its thing as we can get it down pretty low, and then it takes itself out with a Toxic, which is going to lead into Necro Ray. Gonna go for a Photon Geyser, transforming, and we can go for another Toxic. From here, we can then go for an Earth Power, doing about 50%, and now it's just below that with the Toxic, as he swaps out, sending Ninsharp back in just to get Earth Power down to basically nothing before he gets KO'd. Necro Ray is going to come back in and getting the Intimidate off on us, but that doesn't matter. And one more Earth Power Poison combo is going to get this thing down wicked low before it inevitably goes down. And this is when Torter Neon's going to come in next, going for a Giga Drain and connecting with us as we go for another Toxic. Now from here, it's going to try to go for a Flare Blitz, and I go for a Giga Drain, doing a little bit of damage to it. And now that Poison is really going to start taking hold on this thing, as we switch up, going for another Earth Power, it's now down well below half. So one more Earth Power will take it down into the red, where the Poison will take it down, which is going to lead into his Age of Rock. And I absolutely love this sprite, as it goes for a King Shield on the first turn, and then goes for a Head Smash on the following, but it has an Air Balloon, you silly goose. And after it blocks us and misses another Head Smash, we can go for a Giga Drain, popping its balloon, healing up just a bit. And I am out of Earth Powers and really kind of out of options here as it goes for another King Shield. And then going for an Accelerock, we can then go for another Giga Drain, bringing it down just below half. I'm going to swap Doc TV out and send Monkey Jocks back in as this thing goes for a Head Smash, doing a lot of damage to itself. And then after going for a King Shield, I'm going to try to go for an Anchor Shot, which is really frustrating as it connects with a Head Smash, getting me down below half, but it does take itself out with the recoil damage. And as his final Pokemon, his ace, Renuvion, comes in, I'm going to go for a super effective Anchor Shot, getting it down just below half as it goes for a Psychic. And now that it's healed up just a little bit, I don't know if an Anchor Shot will be enough, but it turns out it is. And we win, defeating Rando and becoming the Pokemon League champions with our group of ghastly ghouls. And that, everybody, is how I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Infinite Fusion on its hardest difficulty mode, using only Ghost Pokemon. If you liked the video and you made it this far and you aren't subscribed yet, what the heck are you doing? You should definitely hit that button. And if this isn't your first time here, you should double check and make sure that you are subscribed. But I really hope you all enjoyed the video because I enjoyed doing this run and getting vengeance for last Halloween's failed attempt. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next Nuzlocke video. See you later.